No one expected Cleveland to unravel this fast. On paper, this was supposed to be the year everything finally clicked. A healthy roster, a reloaded offense, and a fan base desperate for redemption after years of false starts. But the moment Week 3 ended, the facade shattered. Instead of a team gearing up for a deep run, the Browns looked exhausted, confused, and completely out of rhythm, as if the problems weren't new at all, just hidden until the pressure exposed them. Players walked off the field with the kind of frustration you can't hide, the kind that comes from knowing the issues aren't about talent, they're about direction. Coaches stared at clipboards like the answers had vanished. Even fans watching from home could feel it. Something inside this team had snapped. The energy was gone, the confidence faded, and every mistake felt heavier than the last. What made it worse was the silence. No bold statement from leadership, no sign of urgency, no acknowledgement that the ship was tilting. Instead, Cleveland tried to pretend it was just another loss. But the people closest to the situation knew better. The cracks weren't forming, they had already been there. And now, under the bright lights and rising expectations, they were impossible to ignore. And this was only the beginning. The first sign that something was seriously wrong came from the offense. What should have been a dynamic, unpredictable unit suddenly looked like it was running plays out of a dusty old playbook that everyone in the league had already memorized. Defenders weren't just reacting quickly, they were calling out assignments before the ball was even snapped, almost daring Cleveland to prove them wrong. Every drive felt the same. Slow start, stalled momentum, and a predictable ending that left fans wondering if the team had learned anything from the week before. Receivers ran their routes with growing irritation, waving their hands in the air as if begging for the ball before the pocket collapsed. The offensive line, once considered one of the team's biggest strengths, struggled to hold off even average pass rushers. Missed blocks turned routine plays into disasters, forcing the quarterback into survival mode from the moment the play began. And instead of adjusting, the coaching staff kept dialing up the same concepts, expecting different results, while the scoreboard told a harsher truth. As the frustrations mounted, the timing between the quarterback and his weapons disappeared. Throws arrived a beat too late, routes broke down early, and the offense moved like a machine with pieces missing. Fans watched long, drawn-out drives that went nowhere, each one draining more confidence from a team already searching for identity. And while the issues were obvious to everyone watching, the coaching staff continued pushing the same stale plan. But the real concern was that this wasn't just a bad game or an off week, it felt like the offense was unraveling from the inside. And as the struggles continued, the whispers inside the locker room grew louder. Behind the scenes, the mood in the locker room began shifting in ways that couldn't be ignored. Players who used to speak with confidence suddenly sounded unsure, careful with their words, and noticeably frustrated. Younger guys, the ones who usually keep quiet and follow the veterans' lead, started hinting at a deeper issue, a growing belief that the coaching staff wasn't listening. The trust that once held the team together was fading, replaced with long stares, private conversations, and a level of tension that you could feel even through the screens during post-game interviews.
Veteran leaders tried to keep the room steady, but even they struggled to defend decisions that made little sense. Rotations changed without explanation, play calls contradicted what players had practiced all week, and adjustments that should have come at halftime never arrived. Some players felt like they were being asked to do the impossible, running schemes that didn't match their strengths or the situation on the field. Every bad drive added weight, and every confused sideline moment chipped away at morale. What made it worse was how quickly word spread that several key players had begun questioning whether the coaching staff truly believed in the roster. When athletes feel unheard, it doesn't take long for doubt to become division. And slowly, a split emerged, not loud enough to explode publicly, but strong enough to change the entire atmosphere. One side still trusted the leadership, The other believed change was overdue. It wasn't open conflict yet, but it was getting close. And while the outside world blamed execution, the people inside the building knew the truth. The locker room wasn't united anymore. And once that connection breaks, it's only a matter of time before everything around it starts to crack. As the pressure mounted, one issue became impossible to ignore. Kevin Stefanski's grip on the team was slipping. For years, he'd been praised for his calm leadership and steady hand, but now that same approach looked rigid, stubborn, and completely out of sync with the roster he was responsible for. Instead of adapting his system to the players in front of him, he kept forcing the team into a scheme that clearly didn't fit, as if changing anything would admit the plan was broken. The most frustrating part for players was how predictable everything felt. Meetings turned into the same conversations, practices emphasized the same concepts, and during games, when adjustments were desperately needed, Stefanski stayed locked into the script. Quarterbacks were being asked to execute long-developing plays behind a line that couldn't protect. Receivers were stuck running routes that didn't exploit the defense's weaknesses, and when players tried to give feedback, it barely made a dent. The message was always the same: trust the system, even when the system was failing them. It didn't help that his decisions on game day raised even more questions. Timeouts burned at the wrong moments, momentum-killing calls on crucial downs, drives that started with promise but were derailed by plays nobody understood. From the outside, it looked like Stefanski was coaching not to make mistakes, rather than coaching to win. Inside the building, that cautious mindset was draining the confidence out of a team built for aggression. Privately, some players wondered if he was losing touch with what worked in today's NFL. Others felt he was coaching with fear. Fear of criticism, fear of letting go of control, fear of handing more power to his young stars. And once that narrative gained traction, everything he did was viewed through the same lens: a head coach trying to protect his system instead of empowering his roster. That's when the real whispers began, the kind that don't stay quiet for long. Whispers that the locker room wasn't just frustrated, it was tuning him out. And once a team stops listening, everything else becomes a countdown. While the locker room tried to keep its issues contained, the outside world wasn't fooled for a second. The moment Cleveland's offense stalled for the third straight week, social media exploded. Every misfire, every blown block, every head-scratching play call turned into a viral clip within minutes. Analysts who usually defended the Browns suddenly stopped holding back, calling the offense predictable, flat, and shockingly outdated for a team with this much talent. What used to be small pockets of criticism online turned into a full-blown wave of frustration that swept across the entire fan base. Memes flooded the timeline. Fans posted breakdowns showing defenders calling out the plays before the snap. Even rival fan bases jumped in, joking that they could sit in the stands and still know exactly what Cleveland was running. National sports shows dedicated entire segments to the team's decline, picking apart Stefanski's decisions and suggesting the Browns had already wasted the strong foundation they built. It wasn't just criticism anymore, it was embarrassment. The mood around the city shifted almost overnight. The same fans who entered the season full of optimism now questioned everything: the coaching, the quarterback, the direction of the franchise. Talk radio lit up with callers demanding sweeping changes. Former players openly wondered how the Browns could still look this disorganized after so many years under the same leadership. Even neutral analysts admitted the obvious: Cleveland wasn't struggling because of bad luck. It was struggling because the team looked stuck, and nobody seemed willing to fix the problems. What made the public backlash even more intense was the silence coming from inside the building. No strong message, no reassurance, no sign of urgency. Just the same lines about execution and staying the course, which only made fans angrier. To them, it felt like the organization didn't understand how bad things looked. And as the criticism grew louder, the pressure on everyone in Cleveland reached a level the team hadn't felt in years. But the public wasn't done yet. The spotlight was about to shift to the one position that always ignites the biggest firestorms: the quarterback.
The breaking point came when the conversation shifted away from play calling and discipline and landed squarely on the most volatile topic in any NFL city: the quarterback. Gabriel wasn't the sole reason the offense was collapsing, but he quickly became the face of it. Every missed throw, every delayed read, every moment of hesitation instantly turned into a screenshot or slow-motion clip online. Fans dissected his body language, his decision-making, even the way he jogged off the field. Fair or not, the narrative caught fire, and once it started spreading, there was no stopping it. What made things worse was the system he was trapped in. Gabriel was being asked to run a scheme built for a perfectly protected pocket and flawless timing. Instead, he was dodging rushers before finishing his first read. Receivers weren't getting separation, protection wasn't holding, and the playbook felt like it belonged to a different era. Under those conditions, almost any rookie would struggle. But fans didn't want explanations, they wanted results, and when those didn't come, their patience evaporated. Inside the locker room, the conversation became more cautious, but just as real. Teammates respected Gabriel, but many quietly admitted he was being thrown into a role that didn't match his strengths. Some believed he needed a simpler structure. Others believed he needed more time. But then there was the growing group, the one that kept their voices low, who felt the offense needed a different kind of spark altogether. And that spark had a name: Shedeur Sanders. As Gabriel continued to grind through each drive, social media began buzzing about the young star waiting behind him. Highlight clips, preseason flashes, and college memories resurfaced. Fans posted side-by-side comparisons of mobility, arm talent, and poise. The debates grew louder, more emotional, and suddenly unavoidable. Gabriel supporters insisted he just needed time. Sanders supporters argued the team was wasting precious games.
That's when the controversy officially ignited. Every decision the coaching staff made, every hesitation, every vague comment only fueled the fire. Gabriel wasn't failing on his own, but the spotlight was unforgiving. And with every stalled drive, the push for change grew louder, more intense, and harder to ignore. And the pressure was about to hit an entirely new level, because the backup everyone was talking about wasn't just any quarterback, he was the one player who could shift the entire energy of the franchise. As the offense continued to unravel, all eyes shifted to the one player who hadn't taken a meaningful snap yet: Shedeur Sanders. He didn't say much publicly, but he didn't have to. Every time the camera found him on the sideline, fans read into it. The calm posture, the focused expression, the way he studied the tablet like he already knew the moment was coming. It all added fuel to a fire that was already burning across Cleveland. It started small. A few fans chanting his name after a stalled drive. A couple of posts on social media pointing out how the energy on the sideline changed when he stepped up to encourage teammates. But after back-to-back games where the offense looked completely lifeless, the whispers turned into a demand. Clips of Shedeur throwing warm-up lasers went viral. Old footage from Colorado resurfaced, reminding everyone of his composure, his footwork, and that unshakable calm under pressure that made him a star. Analysts began sliding his name into discussions, first cautiously, then with growing confidence. They questioned why a quarterback with his mobility, arm strength, and natural playmaking ability wasn't being used in a system clearly suffocating under its current setup. Some even suggested that Shedeur's style, quick reads, pocket awareness, and the ability to escape pressure might be exactly what Cleveland needed to wake up an offense drowning in hesitation. Inside the locker room, the dynamic shifted as well. Players who practiced with him every day knew what he could do. They'd seen him extend broken plays, fire strikes off platform, and bring a jolt of energy the moment he stepped into a huddle. Nobody openly campaigned for him, but the subtle signs were there. Longer conversations with receivers, more reassurance from veterans, and that unmistakable sense that momentum was quietly building behind him. The pressure wasn't created by Shedeur, it was created by the situation. When a young quarterback with star power is standing on the sideline, fully healthy, while the offense stumbles week after week, hope naturally gravitates toward him.
Fans weren't just calling for a change, they were calling for a chance to see something different, something exciting, something that felt alive. And that hope grew stronger with each passing week, turning into an unavoidable question hanging over the franchise. How much longer could the Browns resist the one move everyone believed could save their season? Because the moment Stefanski made that switch, if he ever did, the entire direction of Cleveland football could shift overnight. What made everything happening in Cleveland even more alarming was the brutal truth that everyone around the league already understood. The Browns don't have unlimited time. This roster isn't built for patience. It's built to win right now. Myles Garrett is in his prime. The defense is stacked with elite talent, and the offense has weapons most teams could only dream of. On paper, this should be a playoff roster every single year. But football doesn't wait for you to figure things out.
Every wasted week chips away at a championship window that's already narrower than the franchise wants to admit. Nick Chubb's return brought hope, but even that came with urgency. Running backs don't stay dominant forever, and the team knows it. Amari Cooper is still one of the smartest route runners in the league, but he's not getting younger either. And the rest of the core, the linemen, the veteran leaders, the defensive vets, all understand the reality. Windows close faster than they open. Teams that hesitate usually end up looking back at a season wondering how they messed up such a rare shot at relevance. Inside the building, players can feel that pressure just as much as the fans. Every slow start, every wasted drive, every game that slips away under the weight of poor adjustments tightens the clock a little more. They've seen how quickly things can go wrong in the NFL. One injury, one misstep, one bad month, and suddenly the opportunity that felt guaranteed disappears. And with the AFC loaded with contenders, the Browns don't have the luxury of waiting for things to magically improve. What makes it worse is the growing sense that the team already knows the solution but refuses to act. They can see the offense falling behind the rest of the league. They can feel the tension every time the quarterback situation comes up. They can sense the frustration building between the veterans who want to win immediately and the coaching staff trying to protect a long-term plan that may not even exist anymore. If Cleveland doesn't fix this soon, if they keep clinging to a system that's dragging them backward, they risk wasting one of the most talented rosters they've assembled in decades. And deep down, every player, every coach, every fan knows the truth. A window like this doesn't stay open forever, and unless something changes fast, it's going to slam shut before the Browns even realize what they lost. By the time the dust settled, it was clear the Browns weren't dealing with a simple slump or a temporary setback. They were facing a crossroads, the kind that can define an entire era of football in a city that's been waiting far too long for something real. The frustration from fans, the confusion inside the locker room, and the growing national spotlight all pointed to the same uncomfortable truth. Staying the same was no longer an option. Dillon Gabriel failed because he lacked talent. He failed because he was being asked to operate in a system that felt heavy, outdated, and totally misaligned with the chaos happening around him. Nobody doubted his work ethic, nobody denied his toughness, but football is a game of fit, and Cleveland kept forcing a puzzle piece that never belonged in the picture they were trying to complete. That's why every mistake felt bigger, and every stalled drive hurt more, not because he was the villain, but because the situation was working against him from the start. Meanwhile, Shedeur Sanders didn't even have to step onto the field to shift the energy of a fan base. His presence alone carried something the Browns desperately lacked: belief. Not hype, not blind optimism, belief. The sense that if the ball ended up in his hands, something unpredictable, explosive, and undeniably hopeful could finally happen. In a season drowning in hesitation, he represented decisiveness. In an offense stuck in neutral, he represented motion. And in a franchise losing its identity, he represented possibility.
The truth is simple. Cleveland can't afford to waste another week drifting through a broken plan. Not with this roster, not with this defense, not with a window that's tightening by the day.
And deep down, the organization knows what the fans have known for weeks. The spark this team needs isn't hidden, and it isn't complicated. It's standing right there on the sideline, ready to shift the momentum the second he's given the chance. The switch isn't a dramatic gamble. It isn't a desperate move. It's the obvious next step for a team trying to rescue a season slipping through its fingers. The Browns don't need perfection. They need energy. They need adaptability. They need fire. They need the spark Shedeur Sanders brings. And at this point, it's not a matter of if Cleveland makes the change. It's a matter of how long they can survive without it.